Hello to all of you. Hi Faith, Jake, Joanna. Hi Julia, Philip, Hannah. Hello to Jaden, Rebecca, Zachariah, and Timothy. Hope all of you are doing well today and enjoying this online VBS. Isn't it so different from what we usually have? Anyways, let me introduce myself. I'm Monica, and I thought I'd tell you my story as a missionary kid, or an MK as we're popularly called. I know that you've been studying about different missionaries across the world um, over the last few days, and I hope that my story is something that you're able to relate to. So this is my father and my mother. That's my dad and that's my mom. And both of them are doctors. After finishing their medical education, they were certain that God was calling them to move to a rural part of India. Let me show you the Indian map. Yeah, right about there. Do you see where that arrow points to? That state is called Orissa, and it's a very rural part of the country. It's a state on the eastern part of India, along this coast. This was a place with no hospitals, no doctors, no good schools, no electricity, no clean drinking water, exploitation, and people dying from illnesses that can easily be treated. So my parents went to this place called Orissa after they got married, along with a few other doctors and nurses. This was the first team that went. Can you see me there, sitting grumpily in my dad's arms? Anyway, so what they first did was they prayed about what they should be doing, and they started out by renting a rice granary as their first clinic, and they called it Asha Kiran Hospital. You can see the board right there. It says Asha Kiran Hospital. They began interacting with the villagers and even learning the local language, which is called Oriya. This is my dad in the clinic during those very early days. A very young man, but full of passion for the Lord. There's a lot that has happened since then. This was in 1993. It was way before many of you were born. But long story short, God miraculously provided money through many people, and this helped them in constructing a better building for the hospital and a small campus with a lot of houses for the staff. And this is what Asha Kiran Hospital looks like now. This is the main entrance. That's the hospital building. And this is what Asha Kiran is now. How amazing are God's ways, right? And God also brought people with different skills to come and join the team. So it's not just doctors, but now there is work in education, in the area of healthcare, both physical and mental health care. There is work happening in the field of agriculture by helping local farmers. And there's so much more going on there. If I start talking about it, it's going to probably take a few days. Anyway, so my earliest memories, this is me as a baby right before we went to Orissa. My earliest memories are those of being homeschooled. And we had this beautiful brick house in the midst of all of the villages around there. And this is a village nearby. I still remember this beautiful brick house and the garden that we had. So my earliest memories are those of being homeschooled. Two of my friends and I were homeschooled till grade 3. Can you imagine not having phones or TVs or laptops or iPads? Yeah, we didn't have any of those, but my childhood was so full of fun. All three of us would go biking around the campus, climb trees, go swimming, and enjoy nature to the fullest. We didn't really need all those gadgets to keep us happy. Our parents would make visits to the nearby villages to meet the people. That's my friend's mother in the blue sari, and this is the local market in Orissa. I learned the local language. I would go along with them sometimes. So since I knew the language, it was easy for me to speak to the people there. I'll show you a few clips of the people in the area that we lived. Different tribes have different kinds of jewelry. As you can see, she has 2 hoops in her ears and 2 around her neck. So that's one kind of tribe. This is another tribe called the Bondo tribe. They only wear beads, as you can see, on her head and her body. These are again different tribes. The Bondo tribe, and that's a man practicing his arrow skills or his archery skills. So yeah, this is again another a few more pictures from the local market. So the children in these villages, as you can see here, they weren't going to school like us, but they would help their parents with farming and looking after cattle. Seeing this made me value my education a lot more. I know that sometimes you may, not feel like going to school and really just want to stay at home, but it helps to remember that a very few of us have been blessed with this beautiful opportunity to attend school and get a good education. So let's try to make the best of it. Following this, a team of missionaries started a school nearby where I studied from grade 4 to grade 8. There you can see me in the maroon sweater there. After this, we went to England. Have any of you been to England, the UK? So we went from Orissa to England. This was a huge culture shock for me. I always liken it to Mowgli from the Jungle Book. You guys have seen Mowgli, right? Being thrown into a city and not knowing what to do. I was in my teens. I was just 13 years old, like a few of you are going to be in in maybe a year or two. And it was definitely a tough period because change is never easy, right? We then came back to India and I went on to continue my further studies in psychology in a few other cities. And today, by God's grace, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. A psychologist is someone who helps people with the problems that they face in their mind. So let me share with you a few lessons I have learned as a missionary kid, if that's okay. I hope it's not too boring. But the first lesson I learned is that trusting God is not an easy process. Sometimes we need to take a leap of faith. I'm sure when my parents first went there, they were not sure of what the future held for them, but they chose to trust the Lord. Right? Here I've just probably what my dad was thinking back then was, we don't know what the future will hold, but we will continue to trust God. And God really honors us when we trust Him completely. The second lesson I have learned is that the so-called sacrifices we make are never in vain. So when we, in obedience to God, do what He calls us to do, it is never in vain. It will always have some fruit or have a good result. God will use it to bless many others, right? So this is Lakshmi, this little girl here. She's a girl from a nearby village who didn't go to school at all, but was roaming around the village and helping her mother with cooking and some work in the fields. But through the education program at Asha Kiran, she went on to study. And guess what she is now? She's a nurse. Yeah, ready to serve in her community. Just so wonderful to see these encouraging stories. The third lesson I learned was, you will never lack any good thing. Everyone asked my parents when they chose to go to Orissa, where will your children study? What will happen to your children? Right? But my parents were confident when they said, our God will provide. To be honest, I did not miss out on anything that the city kids had. Never have I felt that it was a sacrifice I was making. I obeyed my parents and journeyed with them. God blessed me with a wonderful education, a career as a psychologist that I can use to help many who are suffering. And recently, He blessed me with a man in my life too. This is a picture from my wedding. As it says in Psalms 34 verse 10, the lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. This is a team from the hospital right now who came for the wedding. They are still very faithfully serving the Lord in this rural part of India. So what I learned was that you will never lack a good thing. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you. The next lesson I learned is that I ought to have gratitude for what I do have, right? So I began to value all that God has blessed me with. So there's a little comparison I'd like to show you, almost a tale of two cities. If we fall sick, right, these are the resources available to help us get to the hospital. But if one of the villagers in these villages fall ill, this is how they are brought to the hospital. They're carried for miles on a stretcher, probably made by neighbors. All of us ought to thank God for what we are blessed with. We are blessed with a good family, a roof over our heads, access to health care, good education, running water, electricity, and so much more. This is how the villagers used to come to the hospital. That's their cab. Next, there's another comparison of a hospital in the city versus an outpatient clinic in one of the villages. This also helped me be more sensitive to the needs of people around me. Even when I was staying in the city, especially in Chennai, it's a city in South India, my heart would go out to the poor on the streets, and my eyes would just, fixate on them. And God, through my experiences, God helped me be more sensitive to those who have no access even to clean drinking water. Right? So I think it's important to be sensitive to the needs of people around us. Yes, another lesson that I learned was that life is never easy for those who choose to obey God. So my family didn't have it easy. There were many times when we probably didn't know what the next day would hold, but like I said, my parents continued to trust God, and together as a family we decided that we would continue to serve till God told us otherwise. And finally, God has been able to put in me a desire and burden to bless others. God has invested in me in order to bless others. So I am blessed to be a blessing. So each of you, Faith and Rebecca and Jaden and Jake and Joanna, Hannah, Philip, Julia, Zachariah and Timothy, I want to encourage you that this day to say, God, I want to be a blessing. I want to be able to say, Jesus loves you to someone in my class, or I want to be able to show love to those around me. I want to be able to help the poor. Show me what I can do, and God will really bless you in order that you can bless others. Like Mother Teresa said, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. So whatever God calls us to do, let's do it with a heart of humility, a heart of real care and love to those around us. God bless you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the VBS. Love you all.